Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Your video is about to start on all things Social Security. Just a quick reminder, we are here every day, 9 a.m. with some sort of tip or tidbit for you. And we are here generally on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for live stream, live Q&As on everything Social Security. So feel free to pop in a timely fashion, and I will answer your questions there too. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Okay, can you get terminated in your extended period of eligibility if you work 3 months straight over SGA? You can be terminated in your extended period of eligibility. That's EPE. That is that 3-year period following well, it could technically, well, we'll go into that later. 3-year period following your trial work period. So if you've expired out your trial work period because you worked 9 months over the trial work period amount, you are going to immediately the next month be automatically in your EPA. And that is the period of time, just as a refresher, that any month you now work over SGA, unlike when you were in your trial work period, that you earn over SGA, you will owe that money back. You didn't owe it back before because that was your trial work period. But now that you're in your extended period of eligibility, able to here or there or more work SGA or above, you're not disabled the month you earn it, and you will have to pay it back. That lasts for 3 years and only 3 years. You get to keep the months of benefits that you do not earn SGA in those 3 years. And then, of course, the month after your EPE ends, and at any point thereafter, if you work just 1 month of SGA, you're done. Okay. So, and your benefits will cease. So the question is, but when you're in your EPA and you do 3 months SGA, will you be terminated? Not necessarily, but you could be. So you are going to owe the 3 months back. So now you have an overpayment situation. And it's funny how it doesn't seem like that much money, but it is hard to pay it back, right? The way you can get terminated is because now you're not in your trial work period, so they can look at the nature of your work. Okay. And they could say, has she medically improved? Does this show something different? What are we seeing here? If they don't find that it indicates that you are no longer disabled because you could continue that on for forever, and or there's improvement because you're doing like medium level work when before you couldn't even do sedentary or light. That would probably trigger a CDR. You're going to have a CDR. You're not going to automatically be stopped. And you have the right to defend and, show that you are not medically improved enough to do this level of work for very long. And of course, the key word is for very long. And that's what bumps us into, well, what about a failed work attempt? Well, while you're in your 3 months, if you're still working it, you can't really argue it's a failed work attempt because you haven't failed. If it was 3 consecutive months and then you stopped, and then by the time they catch up with you or whatever, or get around to their CDR, it is certainly in the realm of what could be a failed work attempt. They can find it that way, and you're not going to be terminated for those 3 months. You will owe them back, but you will continue on as a disabled beneficiary. So it's funny because everything is looked at from a different angle depending on what they're trying to figure out. The failed work attempt can't really be used until after it's over and it's been determined to not have lasted the amount it can't last, which is 6 months. It's got to be something less than that, and it's got to be due to your disabilities or impairments. So ideally, if you're trying to work and you're even doing it in your extended period of eligibility, your trial work period has passed, but you're a diligent go-getter and you're like, maybe I can do this and I don't have to be on SSD, or maybe it's an accident. But either way, you really want to, at the very least, particularly if you're having troubles. So you're doing it, but you're not sure you're going to continue because of pain or fatigue or worsening of your condition as a result. or just a worsening of your condition that's going to stop you, I would make sure that I'm talking to my doctor about it. Saying this is not feeling good. I find that I get home from work and I have to lie down until the next morning. My spouse has to bring me my dinner. Like if it's really destroying you, so you can't even do your ADLs, it might be that in reality you can't function while doing a full-time job or that SGA job. But you want to have that kind of documented, that you have those complaints, the aggravation of your symptoms, whatever the case may be. Because while you're doing those SGA months, you're presenting a picture that says, I'm improved enough not to be on disability, maybe. And so you're going to want to have those proofs later when you're not able to work anymore of what was going on. And again, if you go over 6 months, I'm sorry, if you hit 6 months, so think of it as 5 months, okay? Let's go conservative. Frankly, 4 months is even better. You really, you're going to be done for. The 6 months is going to de facto, I would say, be not a failed work attempt because it cannot be, and it will be a cessation because it is SGA for 6 months. So, but something shorter than that, and certainly something sporadic, 1 month here, 1 month there, tipping over, probably not. But again, you are collecting disability. You're always going to have a CDR one day. It's just whether it'll be triggered by this. And it's just a check. A CDR is just a check. It doesn't mean that are going to be flipped. In fact, for most people, I'd say they're not. And that's even with part-time work. So do whatever you do with care. Know your SGA. Already have planned how many hours you can work at what rate, and don't change it. And if someone wants you to work overtime, you might have to say no. You have to put your foot down. Again, unless, of course, you are improved and you're like, I don't need that anymore. I want to get off this, which is power to you. A lot of people feel that way, and I don't blame them. If you can recover and go back, that's the best thing ever. So, but in the meantime, be careful. You can be reviewed during your EPE, even without going back to work. But certainly if you do go back to work, that's something to look at because that's something different and better than what you were doing before. And if you're going over SGA, that is definitely better than even before, when you were working not SGA. So they can look at you, but it doesn't mean they're going to find that you are improved. So you want to have your ducks in a row for that CDR to show that you have not. Okay. And that would be medical treatment, follow-ups, etc. Tally ho. Thanks for the question. It was a good one. Good afternoon. Okay, so we were recently discussing the protections afforded by the trial work period. They're pretty significant. Nothing is 100%. There are some things that are not protected, but certain things you do are protected with the TWP. And as you might know from a different video, trial work period, when it ends, you are immediately in your extended period of eligibility, including your reentitlement period, pardon me, which is 3 years. At least that latter one is. You are protected somewhat in that period, but not like the trial work period. What you're protected from is the fact that if you work an SGA month, although you will not be paid for it, or you will prospectively have to return that money during your EPE, extended period of eligibility, reentitlement period. The following month, if you don't work SGA, you will get your full benefit for that month. So in that way, you're protected. In other words, you're not cut off entirely. You are reentitled for every month that you don't work SGA when you're a working person. Okay, so what does that mean in terms of the protections that you had during trial work period? Well, trial work period actually prevents the SSA from looking at the actual work you're doing in terms of activities and exertions and duration and all that kind of stuff, mental duties, etc. So the substance of what you're doing with your work activity during your trial work period may not be used to find you not disabled. However, that is the part that ends as soon as you go into your EPE. Now they can be looking at what you're doing. So as we always kind of describe, it's very important to keep your work activity within the confines of your disabilities. If someone's trying to be extra robust, which is probably going to be detrimental to the body or mind, depending on what the problem is, it can hurt you in other ways as well. And that would be that it's representing that you can do more than you actually can. So while the trial work period is going to protect you from the observations of that work experience, as soon as you're done with your trial work period, the eyeballs are going to be on you if you're working. So, and that is separate and aside from whether you're doing SGA or not. So they might look at it nonetheless. And of course, if it is SGA, you can ultimately be terminated based on SGA showing that you are not disabled anymore because you perhaps exceed 6 months. It's no longer a failed work attempt being over SGA. So keep in mind all of that. EPE protects you in the sense that you get re-entitled each time you don't warrant SGA, but it doesn't protect you in the substance of your activities. Okay. Thanks. Bye.